I just want to start off saying thank you guys, because I know my schedule is all over the place, and I just want to say I appreciate you guys, because, we're doing everything almost last minute, and it's cool that we're still all able to get together and do what we're doing now.
This is exactly why I feel so confident about this podcast, regardless of our growing pains that we're going through on conversation, articulating conversations, mean comments and all that we still have the ability to show up regardless of if it's last second, if it's a 3 a.m. podcast, if it's a last second podcast. That's what I love about us.
Just like last podcast, we filmed it at 3 a.m.
Yeah, 3 a.m.
Start documenting the times. Today is
Yeah, that'd be cool.
4 a.m.
April 3rd, 9:28 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Sick.
It's 4 p.m.
Scorpion.
Just kidding, 4 a.m. No, dude, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, I think it's really cool. And I understand that life's busy and
Definitely. Everyone's on different schedules.
everybody is. But what I like about it is because the excuse of, I just don't have time. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. Or I can't do this. I can't do that. I'm like, dude, if you really want something, you have time. You'll make time for it. And so I think that's the one thing that I appreciate the most about our group is that despite all the craziness in our lives, that we still get to show up and show out and be the five guys.
Exactly.
So, hell yeah.
Yeah, there's times where I wish there's more time in the day, because I'm like, man, flew by and I didn't, all I did was work today.
There's a saying out there where treat your day like you have 36 hours and 24 hours. I heard that saying, but I didn't follow up with it because it kind of, you just have to be productive in that. But that's why when you're being productive, time flies like crazy. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I know last week you were on vacation. How'd that go?
Oh, it went great. Went out to LA, girlfriend's birthday. Went out to Disneyland. A lot of great stuff. Saw Godzilla, Kong X Godzilla.
I want to see
Hey,
it.
how was that?
Such a great movie.
Oh.
It was a fun movie.
Yeah.
It was definitely a fun movie. That's what I have to say from there. But then Easter, I spent the day driving back. But, I mean, how do I say Easter? I'm not one to go out for Easter eggs. I'm not one to... I'm getting into a habit. I want to build a habit of going to church. So Easter, I spent the day driving. I didn't really celebrate anything.
Right.
But I understand what that day is meant for.
Represents.
Yeah, it represents. Yeah.
I actually, I attended a funeral, unfortunately. But it was at a church, and the priest was speaking, and he said that Easter was originally known as Resurrection Day, but then it kind of just transformed into Easter Sunday, which I thought was pretty cool because it makes sense. Resurrection Sunday is exactly what it means. So, I don't know. Maybe we should go. Well, what's the whole meaning behind... Like, what does Easter stand for, actually?
Like the word Easter?
The word Easter.
I think, I could be wrong. Don't quote me on this. But the history of Easter with the bunny and everything, I think originates from Germany.
Oh, okay.
Something
so
about,
that has to be that Easter, word Easter plays in a factor with the whole story of the
rabbit.
bunny rabbit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know all of it. I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong. But I was doing some research, actually, through ChatGPT. Because I've been taking more time to mess around with ChatGPT 4. And I'll ask it a question. Like, if I'm driving, I'll treat it kind of like a podcast. I'll ask a very long question, so it gives me a very long reply. Then I'll click on it where it reads out loud. So, like, sometimes at the gym or if I'm driving, I'll just have an audio length of, like, 5 minutes of it reading information to me.
Nice.
So I can learn. So it did say something about Germany, something about the rabbit being... I just don't want to misinform anyone.
Right.
But, yeah, it has to do something with that.
Interesting.
But how was your guys' Easter?
That was
well,
good.
you said, yeah.
We typically host, but
Oh,
we have... Yeah, here or inside the house too. But we have some remodeling that we're doing in the bathroom, so we couldn't host it here. So it was at our Aunt Tua's house. So just gathered around with the family and had a good time.
My Easter is pretty chill too. I went to church and it was packed. I feel like every Easter is always packed. You
Isn't
just
that
see...
crazy though? Like usually church is gonna always be packed on the holidays.
Yep. Easter, Christmas.
How do you feel about that? Actually?
I was just going to ask
I mean, I'll go into it. But yeah, Easter was super good. Went to church. Got to spend some time with my son. It was super packed. But it's expected. And I think it's such a joke now that Christians come from the shadows to go to church 1 to 2 times a year.
It's just like how we spoke before on a previous pod about how it's more of an obligation to go.
Yeah.
And I guess people were like, well, it's Christmas, it's time to go to church, or it's Easter, we got to go to church.
It's like the aspect of, it's like going to a gym in that way. I've said it before, but the whole purpose of having that relationship with Christ is going to the gym every day. So you see your gains, you see everything, and then just going to church every day. But for the people who usually don't go to church or worship, however they like to choose to, they can't just show up one day and like, yeah, I want to church, But everybody's different though. But
yeah,
definitely.
It makes me laugh. I mean, like, no shame to the game, because I understand that people are also super busy, and I know that's not an excuse, but I think the way that I've always looked at anything is like, it's better to brush your teeth every day for 30 seconds rather than one day out of 30 days for an hour. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of Christians do that. They're like, I feel, I should step out on Easter and wear my Sunday's best, or Christmas. And it's like, dude, you're missing the point. And that's where that Bible verse that you said is like, I never knew you. And the only time that I do know you is when you show up when I resurrected, and then my birthday, like.
It's like the random person that shows up to your birthday is like, I don't know you, bro. Like, sure, you're connected to family and they know you, but I don't know you, man.
Yeah, it would be like us being friends, and like, I don't talk to you until it's your birthday, and I text you happy birthday. Yeah. I'm gonna show up, or Easter, I'm gonna be at your house.
Going to your kitchen cabinets,
looking for eggs. But nonetheless, it's always super packed, so it was pretty good though. I mean, I work in a daycare too, so I get to be with my son and see him play with a bunch of little kids and stuff, and it's pretty fun. But then after that, just went home, barbecued, chilled, and called it an Easter, to be honest, which was super cool.
Have a patio event.
Yeah, we need to.
Yeah, dude, actually, that would be
tonight.
Oh gosh, yeah, if I had some burgers.
That night.
But yeah, I mean, it was pretty cool. I mean, that was the extent of my Easter, since all my family's back home. So I honestly just kind of enjoyed it. Took the day to, like, I listened to Christian music, which was super cool, worship music, and as I was like cleaning and barbecuing and just setting the atmosphere. So
love that. I guess to dive into the conversation that we were having before we click record, March 31st, Easter of this year, has also been labeled of Trans Awareness Day. Could have misspoken that title, but how do you guys feel about Joe Biden labeling March 31st?
That was interesting. I believe it was announced the day before.
Roughly around there, yeah.
Because Easter was the 31st, correct? Mm-hmm. And then they announced it the 30th. I understand that Easter isn't going to fall
on that.
What is it? Trans
31st.
Yeah, so Easter's not always going to... Easter won't have the same day.
Right, but I feel like it's the... At the end of the day, Joe Biden knows what day it is. I feel like it's the...
I feel like that wasn't him, though. It wasn't his call. I think it goes... Because I remember seeing a screenshot. Because there was a bunch of memes about the person who created it. They looked like the penguin or something. That's what the comments were saying. That's the penguin.
Well, yeah, because there's always somebody that's pulling the strings from behind.
Yeah.
But that person at the end of the day, too, though, I feel like he would have enough say to be like, okay, no.
But with his mental health? Like, I'm trying to be as real as possible because I don't want to, baby him in a way, but being real and not trying to be like a butt. But like his mental health is deteriorating. He's mixing his things up, and does he do well under pressure from people telling him what to do?
No, yeah. Have you guys seen Ed and Eddie?
Yeah.
Do you guys remember Plank?
Yeah.
He gives me Plank energy, but I feel like Plank got away with more. You know what I mean? I feel like Plank was smarter than a current president, which is sad to say. And like, as much as that's an insult, it's so hard to trust everything nowadays happening in our government with people in these high-powered positions. And Joe Biden has always just been kind of like a joke, I guess, to me. Yeah. And the only reason I say that is because every time I see pictures of him, he's eating ice cream. I love that, though.
Well, I'm like, hell yeah. I feel like the reason why he became president is because the election that happened, what was it, about 4 years ago?
4 years ago, yeah.
Was more about
Don't vote for
having Trump not
Yeah.
be president than picking the better candidate.
Yeah. But then that reverts back to all the fake news, false media that was generated around the time. I think we spoke about that a couple episodes too.
Mm-hmm. So I think that played a really big role. And now we're back into the situation, but people are kind of opening up their eyes and, you know, kind of doing their own
legacy
research.
News is starting to take now. There's a certain percentage pool of like Fox News, CNN, all like just legacy news that have been out for a while.
Mm-hmm.
The percentages are starting to tank. There's a whole chart about like even like the last 5 years is just going down and down and down and down, where people are finding their news from more reliable journalists.
Right.
So definitely the news did have a big impact on that.
Well, I think at the end of the day, it's about you doing your own research and then finding a like news journalist that is very. It's hard to do, but I know there's some out there that are very. I don't know the right non-biased. Is that the right word?
Unbiased.
Unbiased.
Yeah.
Unbiased. And I think that's the best way to go because when you're not, I can read a whole bunch of things that are for Republican and be like, yeah, but I'm not seeing the other side, right?
Definitely.
And I think when you're listening to a journalist or, you know,
that leans one way,
or that's in the middle, and you kind of get a better perspective on both sides.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easier to make a judgment on when you have knowledge on both sides.
Both parties. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of people fail to do that out of... I don't want to retouch things that we've talked about because I don't want to be repetitive, but it has to do with making time in the day to do research on things that are going to impact your life and your kids' lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an important thing to do, but people get scared from it. And that's okay. Everything's scary when you don't know. Like going to the gym for the first time gets a little scary. I was scared going to the gym. But entering politics gets scary.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just think it's an unusual coincidence that he announced it. When he announced it and how he announced it, because the 31st was Easter, right? And I think people were like, because I was asking, I was like, why is it in March, but we're in a leap year?
Yeah.
Right? And that, so the 1 year that Easter actually falls on the 31st, we're going to make this national holiday
I was on social
awareness.
media on that day, and everybody, well, a lot of the Christians are like, "This is terrible."
Oh yeah, PBD
and I
posted a story.
I understand it. I see where they're coming from, but at the same time, it's like, okay, I think it shouldn't have been on that day because it's like
should have not
exactly because it's two different. It's
ideologies.
like exactly.
You have two
and
ideologies clashing.
they like clash.
Yeah, they clash very hard.
Yes.
Very well.
So, yeah, I mean, whoever had pulled the strings for that, and if Joe Biden, didn't have anything, he couldn't. I don't know. I just think it just shouldn't have been on that day.
What was his last year? Presidency too, right? Maybe.
We'll see how election day goes.
But yeah, just weird timing, impeccable.
They could have done it a week after. They could have done it a week before, but
or
they
not
chose
on a
to do
leap
it.
year.
Yeah, that too. Like I don't have a problem with. Let me word this carefully. I'm not upset that they created a day to celebrate that day. Mm-hmm. I'm upset that they created that day on our day for anybody who follows Christ, who truly follows Christ, because we know what that day means. That was the proof that he came back from the dead. And they put that one day that they could have done any other year or any other week or any other month. Because as far as I know, I think the Pride Month would have been a little bit more reasonable to do it. Like put a day like the first of, what is it, June or July? No, June, right? June?
No idea.
I can't remember.
The first of that month should have been the Trans Awareness Day. I think appropriately. That's my problem, that they boom on Easter, like a slap across the face too.
All the Christians.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that totally makes sense. They should have put it
makes
during
more
Pride
sense,
Month. Yeah.
But then again, it's...
And is this something that people voted on? Or
I don't
he was
recall.
just like, I declare this day.
I
How does that
remember
happen?
reading it off the whitehouse.gov or something like that. So I don't know.
There's a whole little article on there too.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious how that, because was there any news? I didn't see anything.
It just got sprung up. So I saw it all over social media. It just got sprung up, a bunch of reposts. I know I posted something about it, and I do have a story. I would like to jump into that for a second, but we'll save that towards the end. I saw it was trending Twitter or X everywhere talking about. But bunch of people I follow who are mainly right wing, PPD, some other people that post about it. It's like, oh, this is actually happening right here, and everybody expressed their frustrations about it too.
Yeah.
So, but do you guys want to still have anything else on that?
No, I think that's it. I mean, if anybody has more information, definitely would like to know how this came about and what your thoughts are.
Yeah. I don't want to. I'm gonna open up two conversations. I want to open up one real quick. It's funny because I did repost something on my story about the Joe Biden and the Trans Awareness Day on my story, and I got a DM. Right, that DM was from somebody I didn't follow because my followings on Instagram is so crazy. I have such a mix because my reels that took off were from the flowers that passed out, but a lot of people follow me for photography. And a lot of people are following me from the Five Guys about Christian stuff like that. So my followings is a mix of a lot of random things that happen. And people are like, who is this person now? I thought he was passing out flowers. Like, no, I do a bunch of stuff that involves a camera.
Right.
But anyways, to go into the DM, this guy DMs me something. I didn't know this is who you were. I followed you because I thought you were a Christian. I didn't know that you were spreading false propaganda. And he called me I don't want to. It's a butt hat, you know. An ass hat. He called me that, and I was like, "Whoa!" And I messed up because I woke up on the day March 30th, right? I woke up and I saw that in my DMs because I believe the 29th is when they announced it, posted it. So it was on my story. I woke up on the 30th, and I always try to avoid opening up social media on my account and first thing in the morning because it's like I don't want to think about bad stuff that happens on social media throughout my whole day. But I don't know what possessed me to go onto my social media. Hopped on Instagram, went to my DM, it was a request, and I saw it. I was like, whoa, what is going on here? You know, like, what do you mean about this, about my propaganda when I'm literally spreading a news report that's going on, right? So then we go, not back and forth, but I state like, hey, I'm just simply reposting a repost of something. And then I go, I forgot what I said because I deleted it and blocked him. I didn't want to deal with that stuff. I'm tired of negative comments. But he said something, then he called me an asshat again. Then I sent him the verse like Matthew 5:22, which is basically don't belittle anybody, don't talk bad about anybody, or else you're also in danger of like the pits of hell. But what I'm trying to get to, it amazes me, and I'm at fault for this too. I'm definitely at fault. It amazes me how much, and it could have been a miscommunication. Maybe he thought I was supporting the Trans Awareness Day. Maybe that's what happened, but it's clearly a news article. But it just amazes me how followers of Christ can be so quick to turn against their own people who are trying to follow the same path as them and still call them names and call them things when they might not know the full story of something. But that's just something I want to share of like negative Christians or negative aspects that can happen so fast based off human emotion. But that really stuck with me, and I haven't experienced something like that in a while. I just want to share that because, yeah.
I just feel like I know a lot of people that say that they're Christians, but they're, one of the first person
to cast a stone,
to come up and judge a person. And I'm like, wow, that's interesting. Your faith
I'm at fault for doing that too.
No, and I feel like, everybody at one point or another kind of almost falls into that. I catch myself. I'll be the first person to say I used to judge everybody from from when I first met you, and I'll be like, oh yeah, this person is like this, and I'm like, well, why do I do that? But you live and you learn.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, I've experienced so many different encounters with Christians, and early on too. When I first started going to church, and I know this is something I spoke on, I felt like I was I wasn't good enough to go to church because of the way that Christians portrayed themselves. But there's always Christians calling out Christians. Even like big names calling out the way that Western Christianity is, because it's very judgmental and like it's scary. I feel like nowadays Christians they're like feel entitled to be like perfect and judge all, and it's like, who are you to judge me? And I get, everybody can judge, and only God's judgment really matters at the end of the day. But it makes people resent Christianity, and I guess that's why when people hear about Christianity or following God, they kind of shrivel up and neglect it. Yeah. Even me sometimes, dude, I'm like, who are you? Like, why do you do that? And not
Don't
me
get me
being a
wrong,
Christian judging
there's
other people.
a lot of good Christians out there.
Oh,
yeah.
But then of course there's like good and bad in everything that goes around. So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, because I encountered some people that are, they claim that they're really Christian, and you see it, and they're praising, Jesus and everything, but then when it comes to another situation, and they're the first person to start judging, and I'm like, whoa, where did that come from? And then you kind of hold them to the standard of like,
like, hey, be the example for others to follow, and what it is to represent God. And that's something I do pray about, is, and this is a little personal side note, is something I do pray about is like, God, like, craft me to the person where when they look at me, they say, wow, that man, that guy, he knows God in that way. Not like tattoos and all that, but more so how I treat somebody who treated me wrong first, because God is great, and he can definitely guide somebody away from acting on intrusive thoughts in a very high stress situation with emotions.
Yeah.
That's what I do pray about. But
And that's something that you should pray about. I think people just look at, they have this like fake idea of like what Christians should look like. And I mean, I'm at fault for that too. I always seen them as being like these perfect humans that did no wrong, that couldn't drink, that couldn't do this, that couldn't do that. And I'm like, I don't want to be like that. But I think what people forget to realize is that, in the way that we treat people specifically, like we can portray God always in just like our kindness, our love, the way that we respect people, how much we help people. And look, I mean, I have tattoos and everything, but I feel like I represent them well in just my character. And that's not to be arrogant in any way, but I do think that, yeah, it can be very tough, because I do think like the term Christian has a negative, I guess, how would I say that? A negative, not notion to it, but do you get what I'm saying? Condescending a little bit.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, I'm also trying to find the word.
Yeah, well, anyways, and it's hard.
Topic.
Kinda.
Where it's, he's Christian, all this.
It's just hard to be a Christian because it just is. It's so hard.
It's one of the hardest
because
things to do in your life.
People compare you to like one thing, and it's like, dude, like God created me for who I am and gave me the gifts that I'm supposed to have. And if I was like that, I wouldn't be able to reach out to the people like this.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm just like, why? It's hard. You know what I mean? Because everyone just, I don't know, you just read the Bible too, and you just see how like awesome Jesus was to the people that looked or appeared that didn't deserve anything, to the woman who was like on the ground just reaching for him, and he acknowledged her, you know what I mean, in that crowd. And I was like, dude, she was dirty, beaten, and like gross, you know what I mean? And I just read a quote today, and that's the whole reason I'm thinking of it, is just like, God doesn't call upon the qualified, he calls you out to be qualified. And stepping out makes you qualified. And so that in itself, I'm like, yeah, as long as you're trying and like reaching out to people, and because no one's perfect at all. You're doing God's work in the way that he designed you to do it. And so that doesn't include you being perfect, because no one was perfect when they came to Jesus. You know what I mean? Yeah. And he didn't call you to be perfect because you were perfect. He called you because he needed you, and he could sculpt you in the ways that he needed to.
And I guess this is one way he works through us. Not trying to put ourselves on a pedestal or anything like that, but just being aware of like, what other chances of 3 gym bros coming together and putting a podcast together? Exactly. Because a lot, more than often, actually saying lately, I've been approaching people, or people have been approaching me about the podcast. Like, dude, I'm so happy you guys are doing this, because it does shine light on things I want to talk about, but I may not be comfortable talking to my current friends or to family members. But it creates that platform just to reassure me that other people that go to the same gym as me, or the same community, or the same city, that have the same perspectives or same beliefs as me. Because nowadays it's probably more difficult to find people who are expressive about their belief in God. But I think it's pretty cool what we're doing, in a positive term of what we're trying to do. but also have our own twist with it with our conspiracy topics, pyramids, aliens, everything. Because it's us, it's who we are, it's things that we find interesting. I think that's just pretty cool,
Yeah.
To refortify what you
Yeah. And it's been awesome to build some cool connections. And I was going to talk about like the Christian against Christian, because even in our comments, can get very, oh man,
Slinky bud
it's
back
so
and forth, bro.
tough, man. And I'm like, dude, we're all working towards the same thing. You know what I mean?
I guess it comes to, I see a lot of how we kind of interpret things and then how other people interpret things. So, like I said before, I've said it before, everybody's going to probably interpret the Bible differently. And that's okay, I think, as long as, you kind of, how do I word it? We all have like the same end goal. So, if he wants to do it this way, that's totally fine, as long as, they're...
He's not hurting anyone.
Exactly.
I think. Because God's going to weigh your heart.
Exactly. So, if you have your own way of interpreting it, go for it.
Yeah, my thing was just like, gosh, people were being so mean to each other. And I'm like, hey, I just wanted to be like, hey, chill out. Yep. We can have cordial conversations in a mature manner so that we understand like each other's perspectives, because that's how you grow.
I do see like positive comments out there.
Well, though. So there's been some awesome ones.
There'd be like questions that we kind of ask on the pod, and boom, and then they'll just lay it out.
Paragraph,
whole essay, and I'm like, and it's super beneficial. Yeah, and I'm like, wow, and I'm learning through the comments. So shout out our people that are positive in the comments.
Everyone. Helping us.
Shout out for the negative comments with the algorithm.
But even like one of our followers sent us a video to watch, and I'm not sure who he was trying to give it to watch it, but I watched half of it, and it was pretty good. And the one quote that I liked from the pastor that was given his sermon was like, the question is to ask nowadays is like, did God create us in his image, or are we creating God in our image?
I like that.
Well, what do you think?
Deep. Dude, it had me thinking about everything.
By the way, shout out Philip is the one. I'm just going to say the first
one. Yeah.
Philip, we appreciate you, bro.
Philip, that video was sick. But it really had me... it really had me thinking about modern day Christianity, because, and then just reading through all the comments and how many people are like, oh, it's this and this and this and this, trying to like use Bible verses to stand their ground against someone else who's using another Bible verse when it's all coming from the same thing. And I'm like, dude, like, yeah, but we were created in his image. We read his word. But sometimes I feel like people create God in their image so that they feel satisfied with living. But it was actually really good.
They try to curate the Bible to
their own needs.
Yeah. Do you guys remember that video I sent about the pastor that was calling out every single sin and what we're trying to turn into? Like,
yes.
Like
modern day
lust
terminology.
Lust is basically, we're trying to reframe it as intimate. As pedophilia is now being called minor child attraction, where all these sins are being sculpted into something where it's not perceived as that sin, or something much worse.
Exactly.
And so basically diluting the Bible. It's history. The Bible is historical documents combined into one, and people are trying to change that. It's like your average history book. Not your average history book, but it's like the modern generation is trying to say, hey, that thing in the Holocaust didn't happen because this is how I feel about it. And it's going to benefit me in the long run. And that's, I think, what is going on in the comment section, or whenever somebody tries to phrase the Bible. Because there are people who do try to twist Bible verses into something much more than it is. And it's funny that this happened to me the other day. I don't want to explain the conversation too far because it's a little bit personal. But I was talking to somebody, and they saw somebody out in public, and it was a woman with short hair. This person said that, oh, be careful with people like that. I'm like, well, why? And I'm like, well, because in the Bible it says people who try to go for attention will, dress differently, will do their hair differently, who want attention. But I'm thinking, it's like, well, hold on. Are you trying to sculpt a Bible verse and exaggerate it to benefit because you don't like how that person looks like? Or does it genuinely say in the Bible, don't have short hair? But at the end of the day, it's like, I think, because I look up to this person for a lot of advice, and it was weird that happened. And it feels like my own wisdom with understanding what God's purpose that has with us is actually catching up to me, and he knows this much, I know like this much. But if it's funny, I was able to find one thing like, hey, are you trying to put your emotion just because you don't like that one thing that person is doing and try to manipulate it to fit that Bible verse?
The way that I kind of take it, the way that he put it is like, well, bringing attention to yourself, you can almost put that the same way with you guys' tattoos.
And that's funny that you say that. It's because I use that. So like, I was like, so with me getting tattoos, does that classify as me who wants attention because I look different from somebody else? Is that me asking for attention? Then that person just kind of like stayed quiet. We didn't continue the conversation because it was a little bit weird after that. I was like, oh, did I not outsmart, but did I have more of a point to acknowledge like, hey, don't twist your Bible verses to fit your own emotional needs just because you have that knowledge.
Yeah. And that video was very insightful because he did say something too is along with that, which was like super cool. And I'm trying to word it verbatim, but if I butcher it, I'll rewatch the video and we'll post it. But basically, the reason why he said that, because he was a very logical thinker. And just to give you a little context from the beginning, he was an atheist, very logical, very technical, try to prove things with science, etc. And when he came to the conclusion that after making that statement of like, okay, did God create us in our image, or are we creating God in our image? And the reason he said that was because it sparked the question of like, are we the people who create God in their image, right? Giving us a purpose to justify the way we live, rather than live the purpose that God gave us. And it really made me think about it, dude. Like it was really good, and he's actually pretty funny. And I'm gonna finish the video because I really appreciate Philip for sharing it. But at first, because like I've watched videos, I'm like, oh, this is kind of be a drag. But he was really good, actually. Like super funny dude. Was very raw when he needed to be. Very vulnerable about his journey into Christianity and following God, and he made some really outstanding comments that I was like, wow, that really resonated with me and a lot of the things we talk about, which you had mentioned that you've been reading stuff and talking or listening to things that resonate with you. And I was like, in that moment, I was like, cool. Like, wow, I needed that. That was very refreshing. But yeah, shout out Philip for sending us that video because that is a really deep question.
And then to anybody else who has like videos, if you guys want to send us videos, like go ahead, like send them. We'll make time to watch them. I still want to watch that. We share social media accounts with the Five Guys, so it's not like one person is responsible for one thing. So sometimes when somebody opens a DM, I may not see a new notification, so I didn't really get a chance to see that video in that way. But feel free, like send videos to us, send reels to us to answer questions, or hey, what do you think about this? And we'll definitely, write it down. We have a little shared notes document where we'll type like, hey, let's talk about this topic. So definitely, if you guys send a reel video, send it to us. We'll watch it and we'll put it on the topic notes. The notes for topics that discuss, Anyways, yeah. But I did want to touch something kind of lightly, the tattoos. It's funny to backtrack a couple steps. The conversation about like negative Christians goes to, I'm going to say negative people, where people who may not follow Christ, but they know a little bit about it, but they don't know everything. Because the first thing I always see, since you don't have tattoos yet.
Five Guys tattoo.
Five Guys tattoos on the thigh. No. We're not joking either. Five Guys tattoo on our foreheads. No.
That was a joke, but I'm getting a Five Guys tattoo.
I was gonna get a portrait on the back of all of us. First tattoo. Yeah. No,
I'm
scared, dude.
Nah. You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Super scared of needles, so.
But yeah, to continue the conversation, the first thing that John and I were called out onto whenever we're talking about God or any sort of scriptures, like, who is he? For he has tattoos. This guy's going against the Bible. Shouldn't he, not be preaching about it? But the funny part is those people are grasping to what little knowledge that they know. And I'm not one to say like I know everything, but I know I've done enough studies where I know everything that's from the Old Testament, and that's don't cut yourself or don't like because the word tattooing is also like cutting into your skin, because that's what you're doing. You're getting tattoos. You're damaging your skin because all this is scar tissue. But they're so quick to cast a stone about who is this guy preaching when he's covered in tattoos? But in reality, that's the Old Testament, and that only talks about if you're doing it to get a god's attention or trying to do any like worship to any other gods. There's only one God, but it's meant to don't tattoo or don't cut yourself to get any sort of attention towards a god. But those people are so quick to, he has tattoos. He's talking about God.
Say that again.
So I think it's in the book of Leviticus. I could be wrong. Please don't cast stones at me. But it talks about as in, it was said in order to get God's attention, you need to cut yourself because, you know, you're in sort of pain. He's going to look at you. Oh, what do you need? That's a rumor or a trend that was going on back in the days. But that was that's the statement says, or the verse says, I'm going to butcher it, but don't cut yourself in any sort of way to get God's attention.
Okay.
So that's what people refer to in the Bible when they talk about, oh, you're a Christian, you can't have tattoos. It's like, it's supposed to be the meaning behind the tattoos. Like if I had a tattoo of 666 or some satanic symbols on me,
well,
that's bad.
Exactly.
But if
just
I have
out
a
of
cross,
curiosity,
you have
a
it's
cross.
the meaning behind it.
So what's the meaning behind the cross?
As in mine or just the
just yours. Yeah,
it's like the representation of God, and it's also it's more a little bit personal. I didn't expect you to ask me that.
Oh, okay,
there,
sorry.
But no, you're fine. But it is my relationship with God that I do have one,
Okay.
like as a statement, and that's why I won't get anything above it. I do want to get it retouched and get it a little bit thicker, just because it stands for multiple things. Because I do want to get baptized, and after I get baptized, I do want to get it a little bit thicker, just as like
It's a
stage
statement.
1, stage 2 of like, oh, it's very thin because it's my beginning relationship.
Right.
But that's not the purpose why I got this tattoo. It's actually a matching tattoo with my boy Nohea. He has the same one as me.
Okay.
But that's why there's a personal reason to it.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it's crazy to see people cast stones at people who study the Bible, but they don't study the Bible themselves.
Yeah.
I just want to bring that just because tattoos.
Yeah, and regarding that, I mean, the one quote that comes to mind, or the one statement that I'm going to make is like, people with tattoos, some of the nicest people I've met have had
They're blasted.
Yeah, tattoos
Right.
just have a negative, I guess, connotation to
From
it.
back
They're more acceptable
From back then,
now.
but now
It's
it's
carried on.
getting more
Acceptable.
acceptable.
Yeah, especially in even like the workforce. But
Exactly.
what I was saying is like, yeah, those people who like call us out for the tattoos, I was like, okay, so you're judging me based off of what I look like rather than who I am. And he didn't even give me a chance to express who I am. And similar to Rob, most of my tattoos have meaning or they're religious. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I have Jesus on my arm. I have Mary for my mama. And then I have the dove, Great and Grace. I have a cross. I have my son's name. I have another cross. And I was talking to Rob, and I don't know if I mentioned it to you, but I have a tattoo interpretation sheet somewhere in my house. I just moved, so it's kind of lost in the sauce. But it literally, yeah, it breaks down like tattoo placement and what it means. And so from what I remember, everything on your right arm is what you bring into this world or extend to other people. Right. And so that's what I have. I have a lighthouse because I want to be a light. I am what I am because like who I am.
Yeah.
Like I just want to.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Extend who I am. I have the dove. I have Dutch Bros windmill. So we're gonna squeeze five guys in there. I have Jesus. I have Mary because she was the chosen one. Right. And then I have blessed on my back. I have a tattoo on my ear. And then my son's name and another cross. So
I have like
judge me.
something.
Yeah, judge me on those and tell me that I'm a bad person.
But
You know what I mean?
it's crazy that people will do that, and I guess there's also that Bible verse is forgive them for they do not know. They don't study the Bible. They're going based off what they know, and I've done that. I'm a victim actually, and I kind of look back at it as like I'm gonna say embarrassment a little bit. There was one of our TikToks that kind of got more traction, like 30K views, I think, on Instagram and a little bit more on TikTok. But I use a term, it doesn't matter if you're Catholic, it doesn't matter if you're Christian. What I should have been saying, the term Christian, yes, it's a follower of Christ, but I had misspoken what I was saying because back then I was much more nervous talking about, because I'm being in front of a camera. I'm normally behind the camera.
Right.
So in that moment, I just said Christian because it's a follower of Christ. But what I should have meant like is Orthodox or I don't know. I still need to know all my other ones, but like basically it doesn't matter if you're Catholic, it doesn't matter if you're Orthodox. It's your end goal is what that should have been said. That was me misspeaking it out of just being nervous at that time, and
Like denomination? Is that what you're saying?
There we go.
Being a Christian is a follower
Of Christ.
of Christ. So
Now that I'm slowly understanding,
now
is
all these denominations, you're still
a
technically
Christian. That's why people say they're Catholic Christian. I think, and this is my putting knowledge together over time.
So would it be like Protestant Christian?
Because you are a follower of Christ. It's like when you order a burger, right? You have your double cheeseburger, you have your cheeseburger, you have your burger. But at the end of the day, it's a burger, but you have your different categories of burger.
Right.
It's still a burger. That's the best way, as simple terms I can say it. And I look back at that, and it's like, damn, I didn't know that. I'm over here kind of speaking and learning. But like, I look at myself, it's like, hey, I learned at that time. Now I know publicly I was, not publicly embarrassed in a way, but I'm proud I was taught that way because it helps me grow. Then I look at other people who are casting stones at John and I for tattoos, but hey, forgive them for they don't know either because they haven't done all their reading either. But I just thought that was something to touch on lightly just for the aspects of tattoos.
Did you judge me because I had tattoos?
Yeah, you
Dude,
judged us, huh?
honestly,
When you first saw us.
when I was younger, I used to judge. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I used to judge people off of their tattoos, and if I were to see somebody with like face tattoo or something, I'm like, oh, they're bad. I gotta stay away from them.
And that's what our parents taught us, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And it kind of came from the parents, kind of old school.
Mexican parents.
Traditional.
But you guys are right. I mean, you can't really judge a book by its cover, I guess.
Yeah.
Some of the nicest people that I have met are blasted, and I'm like, wow, I'm sorry for judging you when I first saw you, but
that's what
you're
you did
really
to me,
cool. Huh? No, I actually didn't.
What?
No.
Oh.
That's what you did to me.
Yeah.
No,
just kidding.
I'm like, thinking
I was like, did I?
Back when I was $1.50? No, I'm just kidding. I was tired.
I guess to go back to the original topic, because I know we went down a couple rabbit holes, is the Trans Awareness Day. And I know we were going to save this conversation for the podcast, but what is your guys' views on transgenderism? On all that? Because I know we had that, but we said, hey, let's save it for the podcast. So,
yeah.
Because we were saying that I think we all three represent a different viewing for,
different
trans.
perspective, yep.
And sorry for the whiplash for anybody who's listening of conversation turns.
Yeah, it's all over the place. Okay.
Dog?
I'm
just kidding.
It's squirrel.
Yeah,
I was like dog,
but I like how we connected to what he was getting to.
Wow.
We're talking about the movie Up with the dog squirrel. With the collar.
Oh.
Just squirrel.
I was just thinking of my dog. I need a...
You have a very quiet
I miss
dog.
my dog.
He scared me with that.
Yeah, I just miss my pup. My bad. My fault.
Okay, I guess for politics, you can't really be neutral, because I feel like you have to be either for them or
for trans or for not.
Exactly. And I feel like I am more, I guess, neutral on the topic because at the end of the day, you're not, whatever you do is not going to really affect me. But at the same time, it kind of does because, it's hard because you're not going to, if somebody is fully transitioned, say a male to a female,
trans woman,
and they're fully transitioned, sometimes you're not going to be able to tell the difference. So it's going to be hard to, like, at that point, and if I'm talking to her,
you're painting the picture as in if you're at a bar and you find them physically attractive or something, so you go talk to them.
But and it's hard too because are you going to ask them, or you would want that person to tell you that, like, I'm I transitioned from, but it's like,
I think that might fall into their own perspective of how much they want to share, because I know, not that I know, but I could only assume that some of those people in those community might be so solidified on, hey, this is what I am, so I'm never going to refer back to who I was, and they might, I guess, gatekeep their history, versus somebody who's a little bit more understanding and open, like, hey, just heads up, I used to be, a man, and now I'm a woman.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think for me, at the end of the day, it comes from, I guess, judging them on how, I guess, they look. Because if they're fully transitioned, you're not going to really look at them differently, I guess. But when they're, like, she's like a male. Sorry, this is all like.
Is
I'm
it
trying to
more-
like process it. Like,
So
like
it's
a male
more
to a
like-
female, and then they have like
more
a mustache
feminine
or
features,
something.
I guess.
Yes, and then it'll like throw you off.
I know what you mean.
That's where I have like an issue where like I'm like, oh man,
The fear of
because
you falling into a weird situation with them rather than actually supporting them, though. Because those are two distinctions.
See,
there.
and then it comes into like, okay, well, now we have kids. Like, say if I have a kid that's growing up and learning, and I feel like that would be really confusing for my son or daughter to see somebody like that, and then that would bring up questions to me, and then to me, I want to say that I'm neutral. But I feel like I said, for politics, you can't really say that you're neutral. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I go back and forth with it. I'm not like a solidified, I support them, and I'm not like a solidified, like, oh no, I'm like totally against them. I feel like I support them somewhat, but then I also like, I really don't know how to explain it. Because I feel like there's so many factors that play into it. And I'm like, okay, I get this, but then at the same time, there's this, Mm-hmm. So I can't really give you like a solidified answer, but if I could say somewhat of an answer, I'm like neutral, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to speak on all of it, I guess, because I have a couple different perspectives. One, totally understand how you feel about being unsure. Nowadays, it's so common because I've gone out with friends,
right?
And a huge.
Sorry, really quick. I just wanted to jump in, and I think it's from not understanding.
That is it. Yep, and maybe lack of experience, right?
Exactly.
And the only reason I say that is because a select group of my friends, they are part of the queer community, and I actually have trans friends, and I'll stick with the friendship first before I go back into a deeper perspective of this. But every time I've gone out, I've encountered trans women who I believed were actual women, but my friends were like, hey, that is a dude. You know what I mean? Or was, a man at one point. But most of the trans that I talk to are pretty like respectable, and they'll usually ask me before I even have a conversation, which is like so cool. And I haven't had anybody who's tried to like gatekeep or anything. So I've had the help of friends, but I've also had transitioned individuals approach me and be like, yeah, I am this. And that has made me feel a little bit more at ease, because I too was a little bit timid of like, oh, what if I end up going on a date and they don't tell me, that they're a trans woman, and now I'm in an uncomfortable situation where I'm like, hey, I'm strictly for natural born women. And so that to me was one of the fears that I have or had, but it's not that bad. Even if and then with my friends too, who are trans, they're some of the greatest people that I know, honestly. And I still have like a close friendship with them. And it's never been like super weird, because I, again, believe in that quote of like, I'm not going to judge you based off of what you are, but who you are. And that's helped me a lot. And then as far as personal experience goes, yeah, my younger brother is a trans man. And that to me was a little bit of a nuance. I obviously had to get comfortable with it. And at first I was kind of like, whoa, like, wait, what?
I feel like you might have almost been in the same shoes that I am.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, having somebody close to you, go through, I guess, the transition helped you better understand, which I don't have that understanding. I don't have that, like,
Exposure.
Yeah, an exposure to
Exposure. Yeah, no. And and that to me helped out a lot, because dealing with it so close, right? My younger sibling. It was, I guess, more confusing in the sense like, not even confusing. It was just new to me, because I was like, I just don't know exactly, because they hinted at it and I knew they were taking steps into transitioning. But once they were like specific with it, I was like, cool, like, I don't care. I love you, and I always will love you. But that's been really cool too, to see them be more confident in who they are and just like stand for something. And that's themselves, Like, at the end of the day, I know people that don't even stand for themselves. A lot of people nowadays don't. And that's why, we live in such a heartbroken society. So I'm like, dude, be proud of yourself and own that. Like, you're above so many other people who can't even tolerate the reflection in the mirror nowadays. And then as far as my other friends go, I mean, I did have a lot of exposure, and I got more comfortable asking the right questions and having my friends, point out things. And I think that's where people kind of shoot themselves in the foot because they don't want exposure.
Yeah, dude, I really go back and forth with it too, though, because, when it comes to sports,
I see.
and you have
Different
males,
Biological males competing with
females. Biological males are just a lot stronger.
It's proven
naturally. Yeah, so it's like, okay, where's the line now? So I just have all these questions that are like, okay, I'm for, or like I could support it, and then it's like all these negative.
I also believe
not
with
negative,
what you're stating right there about biological males competing with biological women, but it's still women's sports. I believe that's also the soft society trying to cater to the 2% of the population of people who are trans, because not everybody's that. And I think it's also them trying to cater to them. In reality, I would say you're actually hurting more people than helping people, as in, yes, you're trying to cater to the 2%, but what about the other 98% that are being affected? Because when you hear these reports of, how do you think when there's 10 competitors, 9 are biological women, then there's that one trans woman, is how do you think that 9 biological women are going to feel versus the one trans woman?
Yep.
And I think that's where sports are up in the air. Not up in the air, but it's very
controversial.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think over time, as we begin to get a little bit more comfortable, we as like society in our generation, there might be different divisions. I don't know, but it's still like new.
And this is where I see, and these are like all the questions that are coming up, and I have
because I have a lot to say about it too.
Yeah, there's like I guess I could support it to a certain extent. If you're a child growing up and they're like 12 years old, 13 years old, and they're just starting to go through their hormonal process of going through puberty and whatnot. And if they want to transition at that time, I think no. Like, of course, you're going through a hormonal change, and you're gonna feel all different types of emotions during that time. I don't think the parents should have a say, and I know that there's some schools or there's some programs that they're not even gonna tell the parents. I think I don't want to.
There's been reports of stuff like that.
Okay, exactly. So, yeah, I think that's where maybe like once you're past the hormonal puberty and everything, and then you want to like kind of make a decision on, okay, this is how I really feel, and I really feel that I was born a biological male, but I really feel that I'm a female. Then maybe I can
see. But like, okay, I guess I'm gonna just dive into my stuff just to what you're saying is I try to remain respectful to it, because the way I grew up is I don't care what you are. I don't care if you're gay, if you're lesbian, if you're trans. Just don't put it up in my face, or don't put it up in my children's face. Just as I'm a follower of Christ, and I'm not going out on streets or knocking on people's doors like, hey, follow Christ, say follow Christ. I'm not doing that. And yes, people can twist it around. Or what about Jehovah's Witnesses? Or what about this? And people are doing this. It's a different level of extent where, yes, their ideologies, yes, their beliefs, their feelings, their emotions, their everything. But when you're doing it as hardcore as they're putting it like Pride Month, where they're trying to tell children, this is what you should do, this is how you feel. But as you're saying, to reinforce you, is, let's say if I was to come to, let's say I'm coming to somebody's son, right? And I say, hey, worship Jesus. Hey, follow Jesus. Is there any negatives about worshiping Jesus? it could be confusing. It could be strange at times, emotionally and spiritually. Yeah. Let's say I go towards a kid about, hey, if you feel like you should be a woman, then you should go convert to a woman. And I tell that little boy, is there more negative effects of, hey, maybe they weren't in the right mindset during that time? Because there's a lot of reports where there's women who were biologically born a woman, transition to a man, and then they regret it. They stop it. They already had their breasts removed. They had their genitals mutilated. They had all these things that when they realized, like, hey, I was just in a dark time. Hey, my hormones got the best of me. Hey, I did this. I took puberty blockers at this young of an age. Now I can't reproduce. Now I can't ever have kids. Now my breasts are gone. There's all these long-term negative effects versus the comparison of, hey, go worship Jesus.
Right.
And I think that's the aspect of...
That's kind of where I was coming from. That's why I'm like, okay, maybe you can kind of support it after, they go through the whole stage of puberty and whatnot, and they're a little bit older and more, I guess,
more mentally mature. But even the what's that thing when you're 25? I've been seeing a lot of memes going on.
We're not fully developed
mentally until you're 25, because there's all these
right.
memes when you finally feel your frontal lobe develop, and you have these eye-opening things. Like, even if you do it at 21, 22, who knows how you're going to feel 25, 26.
Exactly.
But there's a lot of negative long-term effects if you change your mind. And if you change your mind about worshiping God, did you really experience negative effects? Or did you learn how to meditate? Did you learn how to get in touch with your feelings? Did you? And I'm just comparing those two because I don't want anybody to come back and say, like, well, you can't get on us for trying to have Pride Month or going around and saying, love is love. But at the end of the day, it's like, yes, but if you're gay and man loves a man, cool, sure, whatever. And I say that with respect. I'm not brushing it off. It's so quick. But when you're talking about transitioning, that causes so many more long-term effects if you change your mind versus worshiping God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
So you don't support?
I'm respectful about it. I don't like it rubbed in my face, but I also look at it as because God created everybody in his image, and he created everybody, he knows how you were supposed to be made. He knows how many hairs you have on your guys' head. He knows that you were going to get tattoos. He knows I was going to get tattoos. He knows he was going to put you through things that he put you through. Same thing with me. He knows everything about us, and he knows who you are. If you're born a man, you're meant to be that man. The way I look at it is, if you transition from a man to a woman, are you telling God that, hey, God, you were wrong and you put me in the wrong body?
Okay, I understand that logic, but at the same time, God knows what you're going to do from the very beginning, right? Mm-hmm. So
he also knows all the challenges that you're going to encounter,
right?
With Satan also being around.
So,
and yes, I know what you're thinking. This might be triggering to anybody who is trans or supports trans, but I saw this thing and I'm gonna butcher it completely. There's a saying or a comment that said, "God made you beautiful, but Satan took that away from you." As in, God made you beautiful as that biological woman, but Satan took it away from you and made you think that you were, a man.
Right.
And then you went, I'm not trying to poke at anybody. I'm not trying to trigger anybody on purpose. I'm just explaining the comment much more into detail. As in, where Satan got into your mind, led you the wrong way. That's the way that I could understand it. I'm not saying, oh, that's how it is, but I can see the logic that they use behind it, because as we all know, Satan can't take away the blessings God is going to give us in the future, but it could definitely lead us down a long path or a completely different detour to get to your destination a lot longer. So say I was born a biological man, right? I am a biological man. But let's say my destination, that God's plan, is from here to there, right? A couple years, right? But let's say all of a sudden, maybe not all of a sudden, because I'm trying to put myself in their shoes. As I'm growing up, I feel these emotions that, hey, maybe I'm meant to be a woman. So then one day I go get a trans surgery, I transition. Now I'm a woman, but through transgenderism. So instead of my pathway going from here to here, it is now a squiggly line going all the way over here. Or eventually one day, 10, 15 years from now, where I open up my eyes, I'm like, oh, wait, whoa, this is not me. I'm not saying this is for everybody. I'm just saying that's a possibility. We're
hypothetical.
Yes, thank you. And now I'm at my destination. But versus it taking from point A to point B in 5 years, it took me 15 years going down this way, where I still got God's blessings that he gave me. But Satan sent me on this detour path, going this long, slithery way and now I finally got it, but an extra 10 years later. Because the devil can't take away our blessings that God's going to give us. He can only provide detours for us. That's why overthinking exists, anxiety exists, because all those are things that make us doubt, are we doing the right thing? Should we go down that path? Should we go down this pathway? And I think that's what he does. He whispers to us little negative things or little things that, hey, maybe I should do this. Maybe I should transition. Maybe, I'm not trying to invalidate anybody's feelings at all. I'm just saying that's my perspective of it, coming from a biblical sense, because God created everybody in his perfect image. Mm-hmm. Who are you to tell God, you're wrong, I'm supposed to be born a man or be born a woman? So I'm going to let science help me out and take care of me because this is what I believe and you are wrong. That's how I see it.
You could almost put the quote that you were kind of speaking on. How did it go? Did we create...
Mm-hmm. Did God create us in his image, or are we creating God in our image? Mm-hmm.
That's just the way that I see it. At the end of the day, I still support as in, hey, don't rub it up in my face or my children's face.
Boundaries,
of course.
Yeah.
But a lot of people take that out, like how Disney, they're trying to enforce little micro doses of LGBT, of all these other things. Yeah. And a lot of stocks are tanking. Disney hasn't made profit in the last 5 years. They've only lost... their stock has gone down by $2 in the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. Their quality and a lot of things have tanked.
So LGBTQ, you can say that you support it to a certain extent.
It's tricky. It very is, because I want to say I support it out of love and respect, as in, hey, you go do you, just don't put it in my face. Just like I won't come to you with the Bible, hey, boom, 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 this. Like, that's respect, that's boundaries, as we're saying. But it's also parts of me are concerned, like, the way that I think, because of how the entire conversation I had about the devil getting into people's minds. It's like, are you somebody who's being led astray? Should I reach out my hand and try to help you and bring you back? Mm-hmm. It's that fine line of respect, because it's such a topic that goes so many different ways, of having that love and respect for your sibling, having that love and respect for a person and their boundaries, having that love and respect because you want everybody to do things that make them happy. But at the end of the day, internally, and this might be a little bit more of a exaggeration, but if you see your friend who gets drunk every single day is always just drinking alcohol, drunk every day, but he's happy. They're doing the best that they can. They're happy. When you know, like, hey, that's what makes them feel happy, that could also be damaging them. And that's where I get is like, should I go have that difficult conversation? Hey, are you sure you want to go down this route of just being drunk every day because it suppresses your emotions? And that's, I think, that creates that. And again, that's an extreme example versus transgenderism, because you can't tell somebody, hey, John, you can't feel that way because of these rules. So
how would you go about that conversation?
That conversation is, I don't think I would have that conversation, because I have a friend who is a transgender, from male to female. I don't think I would be ever suitable to have those conversations, because they're not like a brother or a sister or somebody very dear to me. I can't just go out in public, hey, I can't do that. That's disrespect to their boundaries to some stranger. I can't have some stranger come to me and preach about my feelings, or that you have to have that relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, to answer you guys this question too, I support it. And the only reason I say that is that I've always been a love all, serve all kind of individual. And like, at the end of the day, it's like, again, what is my judgment going to do for them? I can do my best to live the life that I'm supposed to live, fruitful, surround myself by the people that I need to. But I've also met just so many great people who are trans, LGBTQ, whatever, you know what I mean? And we've talked about this before, and I think, like, if I get ridiculed for this, I don't really care. Yeah, at the end of the day, I'm living the life that I need to, and I'm loving the people the way that I know how to love people. And it's not my job to save everybody, so why should I act like it all the time? You know what I mean? Like, a lot of my friends who are gay, I'm not going to go up to them and be like, hey, stop doing that. You know what I mean?
But do you feel the need that they need to be saved?
You can't save somebody unless they want to be saved.
It's a choice. And we talked about this, right? Like,
I guess in the biblical sense, they're not on the right path.
If you're talking biblical, I would say, Romans chapter 2. talks about, men laying with men, women laying with women, how that's a sin and it's an abomination is the thing.
So I struggle with like, how can you love the person but not support what they're doing, Then that's where I feel like, I have all these questions and it's a lot, it's a lot. And that's one of the main things, because I have gay friends. I have cousins that are family members that are gay. But yeah, it's like, if we have this, we're all Christian, and biblically it's not right. So yeah, I guess my question is, how do you guys love the person, or what was the question? How do you
love someone that you don't support?
Exactly.
You don't support what they're doing.
Yeah. I guess I'd try to have a question to rebuttal with this, but what if you love the person and you don't support them? Like, and I'm going to use my sibling as an example. They tell me they're transitioning. I love them, and then I just don't support them. Do you think they're going to look at me differently as well? And do you think that our relationship is going to suffer? And the only reason I say that is because, it can be very conflicting. I mean, if you're talking biblically and talking about religion, religion tells us, like, that's wrong. Mm-hmm. But I'd rather risk it doing what I feel is right by supporting and loving my family member, even though I wouldn't make that decision for myself. Because you didn't sin, right?
Right.
But you can still love and support people and not even like participate in
Just
that.
like
You know what I mean?
How are you gonna support somebody that you love that is also supporting a sin that is against your? That I guess that's
define support as in, am I the one who's rooting for them? Am I the one who's posting love is love? Like, what type of support? Because I think I don't want to say I don't, you could support but not support. Like, you could be there for them. Hey, if this is what we're going to do, I want to let you know, like, I'm always going to be here for you emotionally, physically. If you need me to take care of you while you're healing after your surgery, if you need to vent to somebody about how you feel, versus going out and publicly, I support this because my sibling's this or this and that. Like, what type of support are we talking?
That is a really good question. I think also sometimes people think they have what's the word I'm looking for? They feel entitled, the entitlement to insert themselves into other people's choices. You know what I mean? And I think Christians do that too.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of the time where they're like, I see you sinning, so I'm going to insert myself and tell you that you're wrong. It's like, dude, like, we were always given the free will, right? Always free will to choose, because choosing someone is more powerful than feeling obligated to someone, right? And I think, like, in my situation, I didn't insert myself in their choice because their choice is their choice, but I'm always going to love them and support what they do because of who they are. I'm always going to stick with that, the who you are versus what you are. Because at the end of the day, like, one, I'm staying true to who I am and my beliefs, but two, like, you're my sibling and I would look foolish if I were ever to just like neglect you, you know what I mean? But we can't make choices for everyone all the time or feel the pressure to, like, when it becomes obligation, it's no longer intentional or authentic, I would say. Right. Which maybe doesn't answer your question fully, but it's just like, I don't know how to describe the feeling that I have, but it's more of like, to each their own.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And as much as like we can support them and love them and try to steer them back on the right path, at the end of the day, we've said this before, it's like, God's going to judge you, not me. Yeah. And I think, like, we tend to mix up support versus judge. You know what I mean? Because like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I kind of get where you're coming from. Let me ask this.
Yes.
And I don't want to
No,
make
you're
it seem
good.
like I'm attacking you or
Yeah.
anything. But do you? So you believe that you can support the LGBTQ community and be Christian?
Because I'm Christian and they're LGBTQ. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I can. I mean, and people might say that I'm wrong for that, but again, like each life is their own life, and I have no control in what other people do. But if I were to become, LGBTQ, I want to make sure I'm saying that right.
LGBT is fine, I think.
Yeah. Then obviously that's my choice, and I know the sacrifices that I'm making, and so, yeah. I mean, like, I want to say like there's a barrier because I can only control my bubble, and what everyone does outside of my bubble, that's their bubble.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I think it's foolish for me to like hate someone for making their choice, or like look at them for what they're doing and be like, I'm gonna stay away from you because I wouldn't have.
It's hard because we kind of spoke on it earlier too, on how like the two Christianity
Clash so much.
Yeah, so it's like I do understand where you're coming from. I'm struggling with like.
Let me
putting
insert
it
something
together.
real quick. I don't want to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Before it leaves my mind. And I can't quote the Bible directly, but it does state that if you commit any of these sins, you're committing all the sins. It does state that. No. But it does state where if you commit one sin, you are basically guilty of committing all the sins, right? So if we take that into context, if you commit one sin, you're guilty of all other sins. If I kill somebody, right? I'm guilty of adultery, probably, because that's what the Bible says, that if you do one sin, you're guilty for all of them. Who am I as a person who doesn't support their sin, right, of laying with man? Who am I to not judge or not support that? But let's say on a weekend I go out and get drunk, when in the Bible says, don't be a drunk. But I'm also the one to invite you, Hav, to, hey, let's go have a drink and then we get drunk. Who am I to put somebody else's sin higher than my sin if you and I go out to a club?
Because we're all sinners.
Yeah, we're all sinners in that way. And I think it becomes that fine line of Christians are trying to be the perfect person. And when it comes to, yes, Christianity and LGBT does clash, but it's also the aspect of nobody is perfect, nobody's higher than another person, we're all sinners. And I think it's more so of I'm trying to put this together so it doesn't fall apart. I believe it's Christians trying to satisfy Jesus to the maximum that they can by judging and by not supporting one community as they would support their own churches, of just trying to be holy and remain holy. When they see a sin public, let's be real, a lot of people like to sin in private. Sometimes people get drunk, they post it online. Sometimes people get drunk and they never talk about it. Sometimes people cheat and it gets leaked out and everybody knows about it. Sometimes they cheat in private and they don't know. But the one sin, I don't want to put like that's the one sin that is put publicly the most is any sort of LGBT stuff, because it's a community.
And it's out there.
And it's out there, versus we don't see Christians attacking their own cousins who get drunk on parties. Because being familiar with the Mexican culture, it's very common to drink. I think it's very common in any culture to get drunk or drink or buzz.
Right.
But
tios and
tios and tios. It's the Mexican culture. But we don't go attacking them about, hey, bro, you're getting drunk. Hey, you're drinking over there. Hey, you're smoking over there. You're high. We don't go to the extreme of the LGBT stuff. We don't go to the extreme as if we were to go to the LGBT stuff. It's still a sin, right? Getting drunk.
Yeah, I guess I understand your perspective of like.
So
there's like you're almost putting it on levels.
I think it's that what he's saying is the you could judge somebody, but there's also support somebody. I think the community judges more than doesn't support, because they're not supporting it, but they're also judging very hard.
So you believe that the Christians judge the LGBTQ community a lot harder
Because their sin is
because
public.
of the sin is more out there.
Because imagine if the LGBT wasn't a community, it's very, I guess, low key under the wraps. The Christians wouldn't have anybody to go to, hey, this is wrong, hey, that's wrong, because they're not talking about it. They're not putting it public. But as much as they're trying to enforce it out there to, hey, maybe that little kid should be a girl because of X, Y, and Z, that's more of a attack towards it because they're becoming defensive, of course. It'd be the same equivalent as if there was a drunk community who was going around in public and saying, hey, you're stressed, have a drink, smoke some cigarettes, get high. That's influencing some sort of drunkenness to it. I would believe it's the same thing. It's just a sin that's being amplified to the public to try to treat it to the norm.
Yeah, so I'm gonna add to this.
Yeah.
So it's like
I just whipped that up on the fly, by the way. So
look at the 10 Commandments, right?
Right.
The 10 Commandments are the 10 Commandments, but they're all equal. But I think when one is more publicized or talked about more frequently, it becomes escalated in the sense, oh, this sin's worse than all of the rest, but the 10 Commandments are still the 10 Commandments, right? A sin's a sin. But I do agree with what you're saying. I think that's like the perspective that I got was like, yeah, I think this is such a big topic because it's more spoken about. You see it the most, most relevant, I guess, to today's generation. But how does that compare to, the rest of them? They're all still part of the Bible and in the sin, the sins. So I get where you're coming from.
Again, I just put that together out of I didn't have time to think about that. It's my first time actually even having that constructive conversation out loud. So sorry if it's a little messy.
So sin is a sin.
Sin is a sin.
I get that. Yeah,
it's all equal. I'm not one to judge for a man laying with a man if I got drunk 3 days ago. And I know that puts a lot of...
At the end of the day, you guys are saying you can be a Christian and support LGBTQ.
I'm not saying that exactly. I
mean, I understand we all have opinions.
There's never going to be a perfect Christian, but I don't
right.
think a Christian should support any sin. I think they should acknowledge it mentally. They can... This is a little different, I guess, a little hot topic, but they could approach it different ways. They can take it, understand it as in, hey, I don't want to be around that sin, so I'm going to remove myself from that. Just for example, I don't go to parties. I don't go to clubs because that's littered in sin. People grinding on each other, people cheating, people drinking, people whatever. I don't put myself in that community, right? I also don't put myself with the LGBT community, right? But I have a gay friend, but I'm also not partaking in the same activities as my gay friend, right?
Right.
There's a thing that says Jesus was friends with sinners, but he didn't partake in their sins.
Okay, I like that. So we got that kind of covered, but let's flip it and say the LGBTQ community be Christian?
A sinner could follow Christ.
And I guess that kind of goes with, a sin is a sin. At the end of the day, it's going to be God that weighs on your heart. But you also said, you could be, it could be, Satan swaying you in one direction and say a person is gay for their entire lives and they die with that sin. What happens then?
Short answer, that's for God to judge.
Yeah, see?
Because he knows in our heart. He knows in our heart. If that person is intentionally trying to misguide people and say, hey, I'm gay, you should be gay, and I'm a Christian, that person's probably going to get judged not on what they want to be judged. It's not going to go well. Yeah. But if they truly feel that way and they never amplified it, like a gay friend that I had, I didn't know he was gay until I asked him, hey, bro, you gay? Like, yeah. Oh, I was like, cool. Because he wasn't enforcing it or he wasn't making it his personality that he is that. So I wasn't fazed, but I was like, cool, you're not, pinning it out on me. But when there's individuals who make it their personality, and I'm not saying this is what the community does, but there's some individuals who will try to influence it on others in certain sort of ways or take advantage of others in certain ways. But it's the same thing with people who drink. There's people who, I'm pretty sure we've all encountered that one person at a party, right?
Yeah.
Where, hey, I don't drink. Hey, bro, take this shot. Where they put that shot right in front of you. It's almost as that temptation where they constantly like, hey, you don't drink, bro? Try this drink. You'll like it. Stuff like that. Where they want you to get drunk. That's the same thing with how that person's going to get weighed. They're probably going to get weighed on more of a negative side, as in you were trying to invite others to be drunk with you, versus the other person where it's like, hey, I'm drinking. There's a beer there if you want one, but if you don't, completely understand. That's the last time that they ever bring it up. Mm-hmm. Because it also states in the Bible, for whoever tries to lead the little ones away from me is better off tying a rope with a rock attached to their neck and throw themselves into the ocean, versus trying to lead somebody away from God.
Okay, but having having
butchered.
the LGBTQ community in a church, wouldn't that kind of be considered?
I've heard about those, but that's you would have to attend to mass to that church and see how they're trying to preach it. If they're trying to twist the word around, that's not going to go well. If they're trying to influence others, that's not going to go well. If they don't make it about them and they make it a Bible, I think that's for God to judge, but I think that's them trying to do well, trying to teach people how to live the righteous path, yet they're sinning. It would be unfair. It'd be the same aspect as if there is a pastor who gets drunk every day, but in the morning they're preaching. They're doing right, but they're sinning behind their backs. Mm-hmm. But is that pastor then going out and say, hey, I got drunk last night, but after when I was on my buds, I was also reading the book of Matthew.
Yeah. I think it's outside my realm. And the only reason I say that is because I didn't have a deep conversation with one of my buddies, but when we made that post on Five Guys,
the rainbow?
Yeah, the rainbow. I reposted it, and one of my friends commented and was like, I'm gay, but I've been going to church my whole life. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I didn't think twice. I was like, yeah, if you believe, you're a believer, cool. Yeah. Who might? I mean, that's between you and God.
And that's beautiful.
Yeah, so I don't really have an opinion as far as the queer community attending a Christian church, because I'm like, that's between you and that's your relationship with God and how you work that out. Personally, I don't care. If you're going there because you believe in God and you love God and you're intentional, then you're doing it for the right reasons. Yeah. So I don't have much more to come on that because it's
chosen. Chosen. Mm-hmm. I don't know if this is in the Bible, but it gives a great example. It says, does a doctor go to heal healthy people? Mm-hmm. They go to heal sick people. The church, right? Everybody who goes there is sinning. That gay person who goes to church, it could be, I don't say could because I don't want to sound like I'm doubting them, but that gay person who goes to church could be the equivalent of a sick person going to the doctor. Who are we to say, hey, you're sick, you're so sick that you can't go to that doctor? Because these other people over here, they're not as sick as you, but because you're the sickest, you can't go to that doctor. Mm-hmm. Who are we to cast out people who are in the LGBT community to go to church? Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, I know the question you're having is an LGBT church trying to preach. I think what I fall in line with is if they're trying to save people while committing their own sins without enforcing it, I think that's okay. And I think that's just out of logic, because that's how I think sin works out. You're not that person who's trying to get everybody drunk at a party, trying to indulge those people into sin. But you're there for your own self to get drunk, but you're not influencing others. Same thing with anybody LGBT church. They're not the ones to say, hey, be gay, but you go into that church and you can't even tell it's LGBT. Mm-hmm. They might have a flag, something. I've never been to one, but I think it's what they're trying to do.
Well, and I guess at the end of the day.
But I don't have an answer completely, like a yes or support. No, I'm just speaking with logic.
At the end of the day, like I said, everybody's a sinner.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That goes for priests, that goes for pastors, that goes for anybody. Mm-hmm. And I guess we almost do put it on a, okay, it's a this level sin.
Yeah.
It's like,
sin's a sin.
And I guess a sin is a sin, but we tend to kind of put it on a pedestal of okay, well, you did this, so that's a really bad sin versus I just told a little white lie. or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or
who am I one to?
I got drunk last night or
Yeah.
something. And that's like right here. But I'm not doing this sin. So.
But actually, I think one of the worst sins is the blasphemy of God's name in general. You curse God away, get away from your any sort of negative thing. And who knows, that person could have said something 10 years ago when they were 30, and now they're at the 40, they're close with God. But yet that person who's at 40, who's already said the worst sin, done the worst sin already, is now judging another person for a sin that's not as worse as theirs.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more so having more knowledge into the Bible before having that opinion conversation with the public of that's bad, don't do it. But at the end of the day, to turn it political, it's also conversation based of what are they doing in the schools? How are they affecting the children? They're putting it in my face. That's a whole different topic. But we're more talking about the sin connected to the soul and the spirit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the quote that you said too, like sick people go into the hospital. Yeah. But the irony is that healthy people do go to the doctor still. Blood work, all these checkups, everything.
But
you know what I mean?
A perfect person would still read the Bible, I think.
Yeah.
But there is no perfect person because it's so hard to be a follower of Christ, bro.
Yeah, that just came to mind too because I'm like, sick people do go to the doctors, but also healthy people do go to the doctors, which is very ironic, I guess you can say.
Or what was like the George Janko one?
Which one?
The one where like you don't gotta be, or you get into the shower to get clean, or I can't remember exactly.
And it's basically you don't wash your like. I know what you're saying. It's you don't go into the shower and try to clean up before you get into the shower. Getting into the shower is you cleaning yourself up. That way, where you can't just you can't go to church, you can't go to God, and try to make yourself perfect before going to it. Because going to church is trying to make yourself perfect. You can't clean up before entering church.
Or
church is going to clean you.
I like the other. I've seen it on TikTok where it's like a coffee, or it looks like it's a coffee mug, and they start pouring water in it. So it's like those are all your sins that you have, and then like as you're getting your relationship with God, or you're going to church, or whatever it is, the water's pouring in, overflowing, and over time the water is clearing up.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So,
filtering.
I think that is a wrap. That might be
that
one
is
of
a
our
wrap.
longest pods. No, not.
Bobby, it's past your bedtime.
Yeah, it is.
Still gotta go get a burger with the melatonin, bro. No. But yeah, that is a wrap, guys. We took our photos today for the website. We're gonna open a website. Shirts will be on sale soon. Shipping or in-person pickup would be the name.
In-person delivery, DoorDash.
DoorDash would be crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is a wrap. We appreciate you guys. You guys have anything else you guys want to say?
Nope. Thank you guys.
That's a good one.
Everybody, thank you.